Hey, what's up? Hope everyone's doing okay. So this is week 22. It's Nehemiah 7 through Job 7. Sorry, I'm just kind of changing the camera here a little bit, getting a little bit more centered. But so yeah, it's week 22. It's Nehemiah 7 through Job 7. And so what you have is you have, like the end of the building of the second temple, and that's Nehemiah 7, or really the rebuilding of Jerusalem, it seems like. And last week I was said, like, I think Nehemiah was the cupbearer. And yeah, he was the cupbearer. And Ezra was like the scribe, and they wrote everything down. And Nehemiah went there, and he was, the king knew him really well. He's like his buddy, or he's like his homie and stuff. He was a cupbearer, I would imagine, at least. I don't know for sure, but it just seems like he's a cupbearer, and the way that they dialogue back and forth, they seem to at least have some kind of friendship and some type of relationship, at least, where the king gave him what he asked for and let him do what he wanted. And so Nehemiah goes back and he helps the building of Jerusalem, and they run into some conflicts. People around him are not happy with the building of Jerusalem, so they send letters to the king, saying these people that were like rebellious, they're going to rebel again, and so they just cause a lot of issues for the building of it. They mock the builders. I think they make fun of them or mock them, and they say something like a fox can go through it and blow it down or something. And so they didn't think that he could do it, but then they started building it. The Jews started building it really well, and they're like, okay, well, God is obviously with these people because their building is progressing so correctly and so quickly. And so they start to be like really worried about it, and they start to be kind of envious about it. And so you have all these different issues that arrive, but it doesn't really tell you too much about the conclusion of the building of the second temple. That seems to be pretty much the ending of the Old Testament as far as chronological goes. But then you also have Esther in there, and I'm not sure exactly when Esther takes place, but it seems to take place after it might have taken place after Nehemiah, or it might have taken place before. I mean, there's a king that's in there, and so, but the people were banished, so it was definitely after the fall of the first temple. Was it before the second temple? Or was it before the second temple, during the second temple, or after the building of the second temple? I'm not sure, but it is pretty much the last book of the Old Testament as far as chronological goes. So that might give some hint that it was probably after. It could have been, or at least it could have been after the building of the second temple. But anything in the Bible, at least it's the last thing that's taken place before Job, and then after Job, you have Psalms and Proverbs, and then after Psalms and Proverbs. I forget which one it is, not Ecclesiastes, but what is it after Psalms and Proverbs? Before you have the prophets, there's one more. So there's Songs of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, yeah. So, but that's pretty much really similar to Psalms and Proverbs. And then the Songs of Solomon, it's a very unique kind of place. And then you start having the prophets, and then you have the New Testament. So, but this is kind of the end of it, end of the chronological of the Old Testament. And like I said, you have a retelling of it through the prophet's eyes. But it's just really interesting. And then so with Mordecai, so Monday I have Mordecai is the theme that I was going through on Monday, and then Tuesday I have Esther, and then Wednesday I have the decree was given out to kill the Jews, but it was reversed. And so with Esther, you have this really interesting kind of situation that comes about. And, I've thought about it a lot, and I just feel like, in the beginning, I see the justification, and I feel like there's a lot of good stuff. Mordecai is raising his uncle's daughter, and so I feel like he was honorable to her, and she was really beautiful, and she's presented before the king, and you have this situation where the king has a lot of, loves her a lot, and sees the really good stuff in her, and I think promotes her to queen, right, or makes her queen, or puts a crown on her head, and the king loves her a lot, and Mordecai does really well by her. And then I forget exactly who it was, but the person that goes against Mordecai and wants to kill him because he's not like bowing to him or whatever. And so they have like this issue that arises, and they want to kill all the different Jews. And then the king, Mordecai tells Esther, and then Esther has the king's ear, and so Esther fasts for a few days, and Mordecai says, the Jews are going to be saved by anyways, but if you don't do it, if it's not by your hands and you let this go away, then it's going to be cursed upon your house. And so Esther's like, okay, I'm going to be honorable. I'm going to go and talk to the king, and anybody who comes to the king when they're not summoned, there's a chance that they could be killed, instantly, unless the king, puts a scepter and says, okay, like, you're fine. And so she fasted for 3 days, and then everybody else, all the other Jews fast for 3 days that are inside the palace. And she presents herself before the king, and the king's like, okay, I love you. What do you want? I'll give you up to half my kingdom, which is an amazing line. That's a super powerful line. And so this is very honorable that happens. And then so she goes and she tells the king, and then Mordecai helps the king previously, but he doesn't get any credit for it. And the king's like, couldn't sleep the night because Esther's like, okay, tomorrow can you come to my dinner? And the king's like, sure, that's what I'll do. I'll come to your dinner. And can you bring the guy that hates all the Jews? I forget his name, but she doesn't call him that. She calls him by his name. And he's really high up, and so she does like this honorable thing. And then when the king that night, he can't sleep very well, so he looks through the different histories, and he sees that Mordecai does really well, and like all these events take place. And so I feel like up to this point, that they're being really honorable, and Esther's being really honorable. And then the king's like, okay, what do you want, Esther? And she's like, well, I want you to kill, or pretty much I want you to, kill everybody that's trying to kill me. I want you to kill them. All the people that want to kill the Jews, I want you to kill them. And the king's like, okay, whatever you say is fine, because these events happen, and then Mordecai is with him, and so the king's like, okay, well, you guys are righteous, and then all this stuff. And then they go and they kill all the people that are going to kill the Jews. And then the king says, okay, the next day he's like, okay, well, I'll let you kill all the people that you wanted to. And then the king's like, what do you want me to do now? But this time he doesn't use the line, up to half my kingdom. He says, what do you want me to do for you? And she says, I want there to be a second day of killing all the people that are going to kill the Jews. And the king's like, okay, let it be so. And so then the second day they go and they kill all the people that wanted to kill the Jews. And so this event takes place, and I feel like, I'm looking at this, and like maybe there's something that I'm missing, or maybe I'm not like seeing it correctly, or just I don't understand the event for it. But God doesn't say, God's view is never placed in any of this. There's not anything where God says this or anything like that. It's all their drama that's played out, and I feel like this isn't mercy at all. Like I feel like this is so unmerciful. I mean, I get maybe, or not even revenge now is, for God, but an eye for an eye. But I think that an eye for an eye was mainly just in between the Jews, right? I mean, an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth, that's the law that was inside the Jewish community because God's overseeing it. And so he has like this different view on his people and how his people should behave. But, when Jonah goes and he goes to, I forget what country it was, and God says he's going to destroy the whole entire land, and then they repent, and then Jonah's mad with God because he doesn't destroy them, and they repented, and God says that, these are the people, they don't even know the left hand from the right hand. Why would I just destroy Nineveh, this such great city? And so this is what God tells Jonah when he doesn't destroy the whole entire city. And so I don't think that, that this is necessarily an eye for an eye is to be done outside of the Jewish society, possibly. But God doesn't say that these people need to be destroyed, and doesn't give this information to Mordecai or Esther. And so this non-merciful act, twice, just seems to be, for me, maybe for me, this seems to be unmerciful, right? I don't know if it's unhonorable, but it's just really unmerciful event. And then you have like this woman who you see is like Esther, and a lot of people like put her up on a pedestal, like, oh, look how great she was. She saved all the Jews. But I wonder if this is meant to be seen in a different light, where it's like, okay, this is what happens when a man listens to a woman and gives her complete power, that she just kind of overdoes it. And the second time where the king's like, the first, he tells her a couple times, what do you want? Up to my kingdom. But this, after she does this thing where she gets the revenge and she has all the people that were going to kill the Jews killed, then the king says this, says to her, what do you want me to do? But he doesn't say up to half my kingdom. So I think for me at least, this is like, okay, well, maybe this is not, what the king really wants. He's second guessing himself, but the queen's like, no, or Esther's like, no, I want you to have a second day. And they're like, and up to these days, they like put it out there that these 2 days all the Jews can celebrate because their people are going to kill them, but they turn it on them. I just feel like, man, I just feel like this is unmerciful. And it's like really the last event that takes place before Christ, right? Or it could possibly be at least the last event that takes place before the New Testament. And so there's no more prophets, there's no more anything. And I just feel like the Jews come back, they get their land back, and then you just see this event, this book that takes place, and this super unmerciful event, this super honorable things that happen. The Jews can be so honorable, and Esther can be so honorable, and Mordecai is so honorable. But then at the ending, the vengeance, the unmerciful, is just like overwhelming, right? It's like pride. and better than thou kind of thing. Like it's honorable, but then it becomes like this pride, better than thou. I'm gonna kill everybody. I'm gonna kill them all one day. I'm gonna kill them the second day. And I don't know. It just seems to be a lot for me, and so it seems to be like this is really interesting. So I think a lot of people see this as like, oh, Esther did so great. She's so great. But I look at this and she does so great up to this last event where I feel like it's just super unmerciful. And like maybe I'm so wrong, and I'm definitely not saying that I'm right, but it's just kind of the view that I'm having right now in my life. And maybe there's other events that I don't even want to know where God can prune me or he can show me, enlighten me how this can be an honorable thing to do. And then he just saves me from these events. But in my heart, this is how I feel right now in my life. And so I just feel like, I don't know. And I definitely could be wrong. I definitely could be not seeing it correctly. But I do think that the Bible is a recording of things, but it doesn't condone everything that happens in the Bible. Obviously, if God says to do it, then it should be condoned. But if God doesn't say to do it and it's an event that's recorded, doesn't mean that it's the right thing that happened, or the right thing these people did. And so it's just very interesting to me. And then so on Thursday and Friday, I have Job is on Friday. The main thing that I have is on Thursday. And then on Friday, I put Job loses a lot and is in pain. So you have these two kind of things on Thursday and Friday that I go over. And, first you have Job and the idea of Job, and then you have the Job suffering. And, I think about Job a lot, right? And I do think that, God can test anybody he wants to. And I think this is important because a lot of people see people that are suffering, like, okay, well, they brought this on themselves, God doesn't love them, or they brought this on themselves, or, it's not that God doesn't love them, but that they're getting their just reward for things that they've done. And, it tells us not to judge, who are we to judge another man's servant? I think this is a really good illustration of why you shouldn't jump to conclusions, because Job didn't do anything wrong, and that's what his friends did. They jumped to conclusions saying that he did something wrong, and that the righteous are always prosper, and then the wicked are always punished by God. And so you have this event that takes place where this is completely not the case at all, and you have like this background of why this takes place. And so this is just a really important, this is a really important, evidence to show that just because somebody's suffering, or just because something bad is happening to somebody, doesn't mean that, they're getting what they deserve, that this is something righteous that God is putting upon them. And so I just think that it's kind of really important to understand that and kind of reflect on that kind of stuff. And so, but I mean, and the thing is, Job's suffering, like, although we see it as like poetic, his suffering is like real. It's hard to to put into words. And so, since we don't really understand what he's saying, and it's like, it's just really hard to understand. We just like think it always is writing poetry, because poetry is something that we can associate with. I feel like that is something that's kind of emotional, but it's like out of reach exactly what's happening. But this is suffering, and this pain is like palpable and unreal, and hopelessness and this despair. It's hard to really comprehend how bad this would be, and to wish upon one's own death and upon not existing anymore, and really wish this, and to really put this into words, is the kind of despair and hopelessness that few people can possibly, I think at least maybe later in life, or maybe sometime in life when you go across these things without going through this kind of tumultuous or this turmoil or this painful situation, you really can't quite understand how difficult this really is. And it's just super hard, man. It's super hard what Job had to endure, and to come out on the other side and to be righteous and not to blame God and not do anything unrighteous is pretty amazing. And I think Job's life and this event of Job being tested changes not only man, but just all reality in itself, especially with the devil, with Satan coming and playing his role into saying, all this happening. And so I think this is a really, really crucial event in the history of existence. And, I'm just getting to the beginning of it this week, and the next week I'll go more into it. And, but it's just an extreme event and brings about extreme emotions. So, but it's very, very interesting, and hopefully it helps me in my growth and my understanding. And I think there's a lot of things that I don't really want to understand, because in order to understand them, I have to go through things that are just so painful and so difficult that I don't really, I'm not looking forward to or wanting to go through those things. I feel like I've gone through enough things in my life. Enough things where I realize that there is a reward at the end of the day for going through these things, but I'm not like trying to bite off more that I can chew, or more that I can handle, or more that God wants me to have, or more that He wants to get to me, in order for me to obtain some kind of wisdom or some kind of power that I wouldn't really even enjoy in the first place. So I would say, okay, well, there's some things I don't understand, and I'm okay with not understanding them, because in order to understand, I have to go through some things that I don't really want to necessarily go through unless God wants me to. That might not be beneficial for me. So why do I want to understand something, or why do I need to understand something? Then in order for me to understand it, I have to go through something that I would not be beneficial for me to go through. So I'm okay with not understanding a lot of things, and um, I'm okay with admitting that I don't understand it, and hopefully I can understand them, but maybe go through a different route where it's not so painful, it's not so difficult. If I'm just patient, then I'll understand these things in God's given time, instead of um, demanding that I know these things now and right now, and so having to go through something that that's not beneficial for me, or it could be a lot more easier if I just waited. But since I don't want to wait, in my heart I want to know right now, then I have to go through things that are just super difficult and super painful. So, because pain is real, pain doesn't really seem to have too much of a cap. Pleasure seems to have a cap, but pain doesn't seem to have a cap. Things can always almost certainly get worse, and it seems to be, at least. But pleasure is, things can only get to a certain good that you can handle, and they don't really seem to be able to get any better. But maybe pain is capped as well. I just haven't experienced it on both sides. But anyway, I hope everyone's doing okay. God bless, and happy truth seeking.